Hey everyone, this is a quick video for my students and anyone who might be working with clay from home or maybe in a limited studio space where you don't have access to molds and you want to make something, say like a tray. So I am going to be using the slab method, and I'm going to just show some things that you would have readily accessible at home, whether it be like a styrofoam tray that you could use, or I'm also going to show how you can make one of any design by using a coil as a support. So hopefully this will help, and my students who are making their shaker projects now who need a tray and they're quarantined at home, hopefully this will solve some of those questions for you as to how do you make that tray. As I said, this video is working with slabs, and my students have a version of the slab sticks that we use at school. Our slab sticks that we have come in different thicknesses, and I have sent home with my students some paint stirrers, the 5-gallon paint stirrers. I just like cut them in half widthwise, so they're still a 1/4 inch thick, and they're about this size, just a little bit shorter. They work really well. So if you're looking for like thickness strips at home, you could use something like that. Also, instead of a big rolling pin, because my kids don't have our big studio rolling pins at home, I did send home some cardboard carpet tubes, those inner cores for carpet tubes. They can push on those and they can roll those out just like you would with a wooden rolling pin. If you don't have access to any of those, you could always take a slab and you could throw it by kind of allowing it to hit the bottom first and stretching. That is another way that you can make a slab. I do prefer the rolling pin method, though for my students it helps them to get it thick, or an even thickness. And now I'm just finishing rolling out the slab using the thickness strips on either side of the slab, making sure that you're trying to keep at least one edge of the rolling pin on the sticks. When you are down to the final thickness, you'll hear the rolling pin on each side of the clay on the slab sticks. Once it's down, then you want to rib it with a rib. You can use the credit card room key type thing that you have at home, kids, if you are ribbing at home. Now I have a template, just kind of a rounded square that I did. I'm cutting out a rounded square, and then I'm just cleaning up the edges a little bit, and this is going to be my first mold that I'm making. I'm going to place this cut piece in my bowl, and that's just a regular kitchen bowl. I am going to dust it with a little bit of cornstarch. Now, I happen to have cornstarch in a shaker, but you could just sprinkle some from your box, or put some in a little bowl and apply it with a paintbrush, or even, a paper towel or something. Okay, so I've sprinkled some cornstarch on there, and now I'm going to set the cornstarch side down in the bowl. The cornstarch is going to be what's keeping this from getting stuck. And then I can just gently rib this down. So this was just a regular kitchen bowl. I would let that get leather hard, and then I would pop it out and clean up my edges. Okay. Next one, I'm just going to use a styrofoam type of a tray. Now, you could use either the outside or the inside for something like this. If you use the outside, I would try to make sure that it doesn't have all of the texture on it that this one does. If you put it on the exterior, that also gives you the ability to put a foot ring on the day that you slump it. In this case, I am also going to dust it with cornstarch again, and the cornstarch burns out in the kiln, so it's organic. It's not going to cause a problem. And just kind of a light dusting on there. And then again, I'll just press that in. You can also kind of drop it to get it to fall down in there. Okay, and then again, you could press with a rib. If you're using clay that's not a groggy clay, you could take a sponge and press it in there, but my students have grogged clay at home right now, so that would not be good to just sponge that. It would leave a gritty surface texture. And then if you wanted to do a flange type thing, you could cut it and leave a flange. Once it's slumped in the mold, if you wanted to create like a flange, you could. I'm just tidying up the edges by trimming off some of the extra, and now I'm just squaring it up a little bit, trying to make it look even. I'm sculpting a little bit with a needle tool on the corner, just adding a decorative corner, as you can see there, to finish off that platter. The next technique that I'm going to use, I'm not going to use a pre-existing mold at all. I'm going to make my own mold, and I'm going to do that by making a coil wall that's going to support the slab. Okay, just a little bit of a reminder that when you roll a coil, you first of all squish it into the approximate shape, then gently twist the ends of the coil in the opposite direction. So you're twisting them in opposite directions. That will help to keep it round. And then when you roll, my recommendation is try to use the whole length of your hand. Keep your hands moving apart as you do this. So as I roll, I'm pulling my hands apart. Now every few rolls, stop and twist again. You want to concentrate your pressure wherever you have the thickest area of the coil. Okay, now I don't need that much of a wall. I'm going to be making a little oval dish, and I need to create a wall that is going to be the size so I can put my slab down into that. And I am going to, and now I'm piecing together the end of the coils, cutting it at a bevel. I'm scoring and slipping a little bit, even though this doesn't have to necessarily stay as a nice secure coil. And I'm blending, especially on the inside or wherever the clay slab is going to go. Now I'm just flattening it on the back by just kind of like tossing it down onto the table. Okay, before I drape anything, I will trace out the oval. I guess I could drape it over first and then trim it later. I could have cut a template out of construction paper first, but I'm just going to simplify this, and I'm tracing the outside of the coil mold. And students, remember, scrap like this, I would just douse underneath water and put it back in my recycle bag. And then I could smooth out my edges a little bit before I put it on the mold. If your coil is particularly moist at this point, you might want to douse that with cornstarch. You could leave the coil sit out for a few hours to get stiff though. Like you could make your coil wall, let that sit for a little bit, and then come back when it's a little bit stiffer, and you can put it in the mold. If you're the least bit concerned, you could always douse it with cornstarch. I don't think mine is so moist that I have to worry about this though, because my coil, that clay was a little bit on the stiff side. Okay, then I'll drape it in there. And once again, you could take your little rib and just gently kind of press it down in there. And again, that just helps it to get it down into that form. Now, I ended up by deciding that the flange was a little large for the form, so I decided to trim it, and that will be a nice size tray for shakers. I'm going to make another slab, and for this one I'm just tossing the clay, and then I'm going to add a little bit of a texture after I rib it with a ruler, the edge of a ruler, just by pressing it in. You can add textures in nice ways. Now, I do have a template here that I'm cutting out, and I'm draping it into the mold, but then I decided I kind of cut off the wings. I didn't like how much it was sticking out. So that's another little tray that could, again, be for shakers. And for this last one, I'm reshaping that coil wall, and I'm kind of squishing it so it's kind of beveled a little bit on the inside. This is going to form kind of a double tray for two shakers that can be sitting side by side. And I'm just rolling out an oval, trying to make it look as uniform as I possibly can to kind of fit into that form. And once I have it about the right size, I'm just going to trim off the edges, clean up the edges a little bit with a little bit of water, and then I'm going to press that in there so those edges are sticking up. It's really not hanging over as much of a flange. It's just sticking up, and it's more of like a double bowl shape. Again, the intention with this is for a set of shakers. Of course, I could put a little handle on there if I wanted to, and hopefully that is helpful. Now, here are all of the pieces together. All right, so here are my examples of the easy to make slab dishes when you're in a limited studio space and you don't have fancy molds. One, I just used a bowl for my kitchen. One, I used a styrofoam tray that came from the grocery store that had some produce in it or something. These three, I had made a coil wall as support and just put a slab in it. And this one, I reconfigured the coil to make it kind of have an indent, and that could be like a little handle, and those could easily hold little shakers that nest in there. So students, hope you find this quick little demo helpful. So if you're trying to make a tray at home and you were struggling, this might give you a good idea. Good luck. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep potting if you can.